My Hero Academia fell off. Now, I understand that hearing the truth makes some people mad, but let me make a few things clear. The show is still good, and two, falling off just means that it is not at its peak, and not that it's necessarily bad. League of Legends, for example, still has a massive community, however, the game is nowhere near its peak. Now, to the 8 of you who haven't heard of My Hero Academia, let me catch you up to speed. My Hero Academia is a show about a boy who digests the DNA of an influential man in order to get into a prestigious school. But in all seriousness, My Hero Academia is a Japanese manga and anime series about a world where most people have superpowers known as quirks. The story follows a young boy named Izuku Midoriya who is born without a quirk but dreams of becoming a hero, and his journey to enroll into a prestigious high school for heroes and learn how to use his newfound power. But anywho, you may be wondering how it's possible that this show that's lasted for so long has fell off, quote unquote. Well, let me start off by explaining when the show came out and what made it stand out. In retrospect, My Hero's popularity had it made from the start, as in spring of 2016 it had no real competition, at least in terms of action shonen. Now, before y'all freak out, I am not counting JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable as new, seeing as it's part of the JoJo's franchise. Now, what now counts as action shonen for a spring... I don't remember asking your bitch ass anything! Sorry, I lost my cool there for a second. According to Mao, action shonen in the spring of 2016 was Twin Star Exorcist, Big Order TV, Magi, The Adventures of Sinbad, Yushu and Tora, and of course My Hero Academia. Now, I would pronounce their Japanese names, however I regularly shower. However, none of these shows even got a second season. In fact, My Hero Academia has more episodes at this point than all of these other shows combined. Look, I'ma just be real. My Hero had no competition when it came to new shonen anime at its release. This means in order to stand out, all they had to do was, well, not stand out. In other words, all they had to do was just perfect the basics, which they did. In fact, it was what the show is known for. However, what makes My Hero Academia stand out was that although it never changed any of these tropes, it did actually in fact fix a lot of them. In fact, My Hero did a lot of things well, which I want to talk about. Now let me be clear, I'm not saying that My Hero won by default essentially. It did many great things in fact, such as... You see, around the time My Hero Academia came out, Naruto and had just finished battling gods and meteors, even though their anime started more basic levels of martial arts. Think Rock Lee vs Gaara or Hinata vs Neji. This is a shonen power scaling issue, where as an anime goes on it has to increase the stakes more and more, keep the readers entertained. My Hero did a great job fixing this by showing off All Might early on, essentially showing the end goal of Deku. It creates a rather fitting power ceiling to avoid these sort of dilemmas. So one issue with many shonen is that with so much characters, not all of them are going to be developed. This is essentially true in sports anime for example, which to this day I have no idea who these people are. While My Hero Academia does clearly play favorites, like any other show, its character designs that naturally shows their quirks and personalities. Take for example Jiro. It was pretty obvious that she was sort of a rock star punk character just by looking at her. And all that was needed was one or two lines and we pretty much got an idea of who she was as a character. Another example is something like Ojiro. As soon as you saw him, you noticed that he was that character. You know which I mean. Like a strong backbone kind of character, the Gagamarus and the Piccolos of the world. If this was the NBA for example, they would never be a superstar. But they would get you like 16 points per game, with like a solid 2 rebounds and maybe even 2 blocks. Maybe occasionally sneak into an all-star game here and there if their team has a high enough record. But y'all weebs don't watch sports, so analogy wasted I guess. But I was right, he was essentially the backbone of the group. And lastly,
Глаз призывать к уничтожению великой русской нации.
You see, one thing I always enjoy about shonen anime is that they don't pretend that everybody is equal. Sometimes this comes out in a comedic way. This is of course the reality of the world we live in. However, My Hero Academia did a wonderful job in pouring this philosophy into their stories on numerous occasions.
Wait, you're crying?
It's not fair. You know what my quirk does? Pops out blades a whopping 10 centimeters long like a bunch of dinky box cutters.
This makes Deku a very beatable character. However, it forces him to use other ways to defeat opponents. Let's look at the USJ incident. For example, Todoroki was able to just freeze a bunch of enemies. Deku had to rely on strategy alone to come out of it alive, showing that even an average person compared to a monster can be useful. So you may be asking, how did all of this fall off? Well, let's make something very clear. My Hero Academia was never going to do well long term. It is a relatively standard action shonen, and while it was a great anime when it came out, like I said, it was never going to compete with other long-lasting shonen like One Piece, Dragon Ball Super, or JoJo's. Not to mention the newer ones that are going to come up like Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen. Now if we stop and look where it stands in 2023, My Hero Academia is in its most basic ass arc in shonen history that we'll get to later. Yet we have so much recent anime that have been subverting the tropes like Blue Locks, Chainsaw Man, or Attack on Titan. The question stands. If you want an anime that subverts expectation, My Hero Academia is now one of them. If you want a basic battle shonen with amazing top tier animation, we have Demon Slayer that is set to return. If you want something that has amazing fights, you have Dragon Ball Super. There's nothing that's inherently special about My Hero Academia anymore. And what really irks me the most is, it didn't have to be this way. You see, everything I discussed previously about My Hero Academia fixing the tropes did make it a unique show in its own right. It was not as straightforward or basic as it seems. However, the issue is that My Hero Academia completely betrayed everything that made it good, aside from the fact that it is basic. For starters, ignore what I said about All Might serving as a power ceiling to the show, because Deku is going to have all 9 quirks and completely surpass him. The show had us going from wondering if Deku is going to beat Todoroki in the second round, to watching him defeat his whole class while sleep deprived. Keep in mind, he didn't even really lose, they just talked no jutsu'd him into giving up. But this was an issue all the way back when he was going Toto Bakugo at 8% strength. You expect me to believe that when Deku gets 12.5 times stronger, that this is going to be even remotely close? This is the literal Shaggy meme that we used to see back in the day. Also, although this was a rough task from the start, the show never really made me care about more than a small handful of characters. I would say that I did have more characters being used than more shonen. However, the issue with My Hero Academia is that now whenever they focus on a character I don't like, it becomes hella boring. Anytime the show revolves around Mineta, Koda, Tail Dude, I'm not gonna bother looking up what his name was. Sato, I literally forgot this guy even existed. I'm just like, bro, can you not?
You can't. Whose mess is this? You put him on the TV. Boom!
There is nothing deep about these characters whatsoever. The only story that I cared about was the Todoroki household. I'm gonna tell you right now, the Dabi reveal is the one thing that kept me going. Also, let me tell you something right now, that is a peak. Minor spoiler, but as a manga reader, there was nothing more entertaining than a Dabi backstory. Like, Dabi's dance might literally have been the best episode in the series. Like, it doesn't get any better. So now let's ask the question again. Well, My Hero just finished the most generic storyline ever. Recently, the creator On The Rise tweeted something out that made me want to create this video in the first place. The tweet reads, "I was in tears the entire episode. That episode did it for me. My Hero is the best new-gen battle shonen. Yeah, I said it and I stand by it." Which, just a reminder, it's his opinion and he's entitled to it, and honestly I'm happy to see that he enjoys the show so much. But I responded, "Have to respectfully disagree. Compared to the other shonen right now, the story is too basic. I have to be dark to save my friends. Said friends, I won't let us help you like you help us. Main character, okay, cries. We will do this together. Show might as well be called Anime the Anime." To which he responds with, "Fair point, but just because it does tropes doesn't mean it's less than others that don't. Different doesn't always mean better, and the same isn't always worse. Plus, My Hero Academia might be tropey, but right now the series executes those tropes that makes it stand on its own. At least for me. And again, if he enjoys it, good for him. If he likes it, all the power to him. In fact, when he buys food from a vending machine, I hope an extra bag falls out. I hope his oatmeal is just the right texture. I hope the next time he orders Taco Bell, the cheese is melted just perfectly. My point is that if you have this take, all power to you. Because remember guys, people are allowed to disagree. Crazy concept, right? Maybe my taste palette is just more advanced than some of y'all. I just think that My Hero wasn't supposed to be a long-lasting show. I think if it would have lasted for about 3 years, then peaced out as Demon Slayer was getting good and Jujutsu Kaisen was starting, and calmly passing the torch, it would have been remembered fondly. Now it's in a weird angle. It's not a fun one-season anime like Devilman Crybaby, but it won't be in anyone's Hall of Fame. It won't be up there with Dragon Ball Z or Naruto. In fact, I would say that with only 2 seasons, Demon Slayer has probably already surpassed My Hero Academia in most people's list. In conclusion, My Hero got too popular early on for its own good. It gave a false impression that it could last and compete with a bunch of other anime, when in reality it overstayed its welcome. Its gimmick was its simplicity, which is fine, however not for a show that's lasted 7 years and likely to last about 1 or 2 more. It's at a point where I don't see the new episode each week until like Wednesday when it comes out on Sunday. So adios. In other words, we all got clickbaited.